सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तमा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 23 असत्ता जाड्य दुःखे द्वे माया रूपं त्रयं त्विदम् असत्ता नरशृङ्गादौ जाड्यं काष्ठशिलादिषु So, discussing this whole thing about mixed up Brahman, Mishrab Brahma. What is Mishrab Brahma? One whose head is mixed up. That is the fellow who is called Mishrab Brahma, whose head is full of mix-ups, not knowing Brahman properly and forgetting that Brahman, that which is not mixed up is Brahman, that which is never impure is Brahman, that even though it is associated is always Asanga, that is Brahman. So you cannot say mixed up Brahman and then pure Brahman. It's like salad dressing by itself and then salad dressing mixed up in the salad. This won't do. And so he explains what he means by mixed up Brahman here. And brings in the whole question of Maya. We saw the threefold nature of Brahman, the three components that make up the nature of Brahman. What are they? Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. These are the threefold, things that is equal to Brahman. What makes up Maya? Three things make up Maya. What are they? Asat. Yes, Achit and Dukha. So there it is Satchit Sukha. Here it is Asat Achit Dukha. Or you can say Satyam Jnanam Anantam. And what is Maya? Asatyam, Ajnanam and Anananda. Yeah. So this is very interesting now. Let us look at this verse. So, asatta jadya dukkha. Jadya dukkhe he is taking together. Chit and Ananda, the absence of those two he is taking together. And then he says these two along with asatta, these three make up the nature of Maya. And then if you ask, what is this asatta? Then we find that Maya, in his definition of Maya, two things are included. One is a subjective view of the world, laced with so there is a mixture of two things. Maybe this is what is Mishrab Brahma according to him. Subjective view of the world along with the observer's subjectivity, really. There is no subjective view and objective view, there is only one view of the Jagat. Jagat is Brahman, that's all. But if you don't know that, then you will say Jagat is Brahman, but then Jagat is also samsara, Jagat is sadness, Jagat is badness, Jagat is madness, like this. All the superimpositions that you make upon the Jagat are included there, along with the projection of the Jagat itself. Is that clear? So two kinds of projections he includes in this rubric called Maya. One is the general Maya, Ishvara's projection. And then one is a specific Maya of Jiva's projection that varies from Jiva to Jiva. So one of them, the first one is called Ishvara Srishti. The second one is called Jiva Srishti. Yeah. So in other words, the first one is called Mithya, Maya, Mithya. The second one, the technical term is Pratibhasikam. So here, and this was elsewhere described. Swami Vidyaranya is really famous for this particular Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti. Starting from chapter 1, he apportions certain things. What does the Jiva do? What does the Ishvara do? And he says the Jiva's job, everybody, it's like a division of labor in co-creating this universe. And the Jiva's portion, he says in one place, is to keep on regretting and be sorrowful because of self, what is that? Ajnanam. Yeah, that is the Jiva's, contribution. And then again elsewhere, I believe it's in chapter 8. In chapter 8 he says, Kalpanadi, Kalpanadi praveshanta srishti ishakrita bhavet. Jagradadi vimokshantah srishti jivakrita bhavet. So he says there are two kinds of srishtis. In chapter 8 he talks about this. And what is Ishvara Srishti? That which started with the Kalpana. What is the Kalpana? So kamayat bahusyam praja gegeti satapo tapyat satapas taptva idagum sarvam asrijat. The great being contemplated. And in this contemplation, the entire Jagat was the object of the contemplation. So therefore it was a perfect and infallible Jagat. As a result of this contemplation, which is basically just like your dream, an amalgam of memory and knowledge. Your own knowledge and your own memories. So Bhagavan contemplates means Bhagavan's memories and Bhagavan's knowledge. Bhagavan's memories from the last kalpa. From the last cycle of creation, those memories. This is the cosmology. So this is what, so then this kalpana of Bhagavan, what happened to this? Then this manifested into the Jagat. Tat srishtva tadeva anupravishat, entered everything that was created. So there is nothing that is separated from Brahman. This Bhagavan, this Brahman, everything has the presence, whatever you say exists, has also the existence of Brahman. In fact, the word also is redundant, because if you remove the existence away, then what will be left? Nothing. A big headache. Because how did this happen? Yeah, you cannot pull away the existence and then still have the thing exist, because the existence of everything belongs to Brahman. So Kalpanadi, that which began with the contemplation and ended with the entry, as it were, into every aspect of creation, this is Ishvara's contribution towards the Srishti. And what is Jiva's contribution? Oh, confusion, confounded. Jiva's contribution is from the waking state. And why the waking state is given? Because in dream generally there is no problem. And then where else is there generally no problem? In sleep? Yeah. What problem? In fact, other people don't have a problem with you because you are asleep. You don't have a problem with other people because you are asleep. Correct? Yeah. So this is a very good state of sleep. So we are not talking of those two states, because dream is too small, and upon waking it is dismissed as a non-reality. And the sleep, of course, is unexceptional, because it really does not create any problems. It's not needing to be mentioned. So what is needing to be mentioned? What creates the most problems? Waking state. Yeah. So Jagradadi. So as soon as the person wakes up, this Jiva says, when will I be free? Today I have to do so many things. Again I have to do so many things. One Jiva says. Other Jiva says, I don't have anything to do. That is my problem. I wish I had things to do. Third one says, I wish I could go on vacation. Fourth one says, I wish I could take a vacation from the vacation. I wish I could have a staycation. And then the fifth one says, I wish I was married. Oh Lord, why am I not married? Why don't I have a partner who loves me? And then the sixth one says, oh Lord, when will I be free of this marriage? all in the same Jagat, okay? And the seventh one says, children, where are the children? And the eighth one says, when will they become 18? So that they can leave the house. And the ninth one says, oh, I just wish I had a smaller house. This is too big. I can't handle it. So big, so many things to take care of. Why do we need all this? My dream house has become a nightmare. Help. And the next one says, oh, I'm sick of just being in this small little hovel. I want a huge house. Please give me a huge house. Correct? So this is endless. So each jiva is trapped in the waking state with all kinds of notions. Illusory notions, because notions of the finite never lead to the infinite. And as a result feels bound. So that is the beginning point of Jiva Srishti, is the waking state. Because in the waking state you are up to mischief, Yeah. In the dream state nobody commits any crime, correct? Nobody, is mischievous. And in sleep, of course, nothing is happening, no action is taking place. So the waking state is the culprit of the Jiva Srishti, because it is the location where the Jiva Srishti flies all its flags at once, One flag hoisting, all the countries' flags are hoisted at the same time. All notions, everything is just like, oh, me the great, I am here. And then you look around, oh, I'm so lonely. This is the Jiva Srishti, correct? And so that is the beginning point of the Jiva Srishti. The chapter 8 will say, is the waking state. And then the end is what? Vimokshanta. Adi and Anta. Adi, beginning, end is the, moksha. Moksha from what? These notions. That is what. So the Jiva's journey is first tying yourself up into a horrible set of knots. Yeah. By making that which is not. That's why it's not. Yeah. So by making that which is not into that which is, that is the not. Yeah. And so the Jiva's experience, the Jiva's contribution to the Srishti is tying itself up into knots, starting with a waking state and undoing those knots, all in the imagination, and saying, I am free. First the same Jiva ties itself into knots and says, I am bound. Correct? It's like in the papers it comes, some people who are slightly sick mentally, or some trauma is there, and because of that they don't feel loved, and they'll go to great extent to make themselves feel loved. And the typical case is that of some rich person's child, offspring, and what do? They fake their own kidnapping. Yeah. Child means they're not 2 or 3. They are in their 20s. Fake their own kidnapping. News has come like this. And then they'll tie themselves up. And then they will put a handkerchief over the phone like they did in the 70s to disguise the voice. In all those mystery things you would see. And then make their own ransom call they will make, And this was before. Now even before the phone call is made, it can be traced, thanks to NSA. Now. So, but in those days it wasn't like that. So you just could, go to any pay phone and then muffle up the telephone receiver and dial your own parents' house and say, help, make up a weak voice and say, help, I'm dying. And then then the person is surprised because they thought that the parents will pay any amount to get them back, and they thought they'll come back and then they will have the money also and continue to live with the parents. This was the plan. And then what did they find out? The father says, never mind. Do whatever you want. And then the same person who was bound and was saying, all my hands are tied in the back and I'm only living on dry bread and water, help daddy, help mommy, the person who was crying out over the phone, when they find out, either the father has found out, that, oh, this person is up to no good, Maybe they've hired a detective and found out that, this fellow is staging it, so the father is one up on this plan. So he says, okay, do whatever you want with my son or the daughter, whoever it is. We don't care. So this fellow is now, in a quandary what to do. Then he will show up at the house after having some scratches and say, miraculously I was unbound. Correct? Yeah. So who was responsible for his taking him hostage? Himself. Who was responsible for setting him free? Himself. This is the page out of the life of a jiva. Yeah. First you get yourself bound in order to have attention. Really, it's exactly like this. You get yourself bound and you say, oh, I'm bound, help me, trahimam, pahimam, give me something. Maybe this will help, and you find various avenues. The father didn't pay the ransom, so you called the uncle who had a soft corner for you. So you the jiva calls, makes a lot of calls and feels bound. And then finally, because of purva punya means previous life, all the good karmas that have been done, fructify. And then what happens? You go to the right person who can make sense of this bondage. Who is that? A teacher. You go to the Vedanta teacher, who says, who will not say you are not bound, because then you will get angry. Yeah. Because that is, the problem is invalidation. The whole life after life after life of invalidation. So then what does the jiva need? Validation. So the teacher will not say you are not bound. Oh, is that right? You're bound? Okay, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what to do. We'll study some Upanishads. We'll rub down a few cows and take them to the pasture, so that the Shama, Dama, all these are developed. And then, we'll just see this is not much. And then in the course of the teaching, the jiva discovers, feels a little foolish and discovers, I thought I was bound. Actually, I was responsible for my own bondage, in the sense that I kept getting entangled in the what's its name? In identifying myself as the doer. That is one rope on the hands. And identifying myself as the done in, that is the rope on the legs. This is what it is. So in the course of the teaching, the ropes loosen as it were, but really speaking, the ropes were not there. The ropes are just aropa. That's why it's called aropa. And if you want to say like a big superimposition, adhi plus aropa, adhyaropa. Yeah, this is all it is. So here, what is this Maya? Maya includes Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti together. See, this is Vidyaranya at his best. Really amazing. So he includes both the objective world and the subjective world together. Your own subjective world, where the snake is seen upon the rope, where the silver is superimposed upon a piece of mother of pearl shell lying on the beach. Both the positive and the negative transferences and projections are included in the Ishvara's Jagat. Correct? So, really speaking, everything comes under Ishvara's Srishti. And we make a double distinction because we have Maya within Maya. That is our problem. It's double Maya. I was standing, in the airport, and the gate happened to be next to this coffee shop. And in that coffee shop, they were, saying, I want double mocha. Double mocha. Yeah. And I don't know what that meant. I suppose extra strong or 2 doses of whatever they were having. So here, the jiva is subject to double Maya. Yeah. That's why it's always high strung, So one Maya is what, being in this Jagat. Being, as it were, bound by what is called the Upadhi. What is Upadhi? This body, mind, sense complex is called Upadhi. The container in which the jiva happens to be shipped this time around is called Upadhi. Yeah. That gives a new meaning to UPS. Upadhi Packaging Services. Yeah. So, so, so this upadhi is the container in which this Brahman feels trapped, because this Brahman means this associated Brahman. Here you see the usefulness of this Mishra Brahma, concept. This Brahman, as though associated with the body, mind, sense complex, starts to identify with it totally and starts to feel confused. That is Maya number 1. Okay? Yeah. Then Maya number 2 is, as a result of the confusion, in turn projects something else onto the already projected universe. Correct? So the benign universe that is projected has, the jiva will add a little more masala and then reproject that universe. So already Maya's palette has painted the universe, I told you. What are the colors of Maya? Rajas, Tamas and Sattva, the primary colors of Maya. So she has, utilized the magic paintbrush, dipped her paintbrush into these 3 palettes and made the sun and made the moon and made all these things and made these little stick figures called the jiva. Yeah, sticky figures really. And made these stick figures, made a smiley face on one and a sad face on the other and a straight face on the other one, like this, One of them is skipping, one of them is rejoicing, the other one is dying, the third one feels its leg dying. All these things are there, Maya has created. And since those stick figures are nothing but Brahman, really speaking, and even though they are associated with the 3 gunas, as it were, as though they are colored and come under the spell of the coloration of the 3 gunas, they are also what? They are outside of the 3 gunas. Yeah. Why? Because it is Brahman, correct? And what is Maya other than a mythical power of Brahman? It is not a real power. It's an as though power of Brahman, as though doing these drawings. And so maybe she makes the stick figure, but what is inside the stick figure is Brahman. Yeah. Untouched by this Maya. So then, the stick figure in turn in this painting creates a painting within a painting. So imagine there is a painting that she is making, and then she makes the stick figure. The stick figure picks up its own canvas and starts to paint. Yeah, very sad. Everything is tragic about the jiva. If the jiva composes a poem, it will be a sad poem. If the jiva composes a play, it will be a tragedy. Yeah. No action, no romance, no comedy, only tragedy. Yeah. If the jiva makes a painting, it will have colors of just, horrible colors, horrifying, frightening, sad, dingy, dull colors. The question is why? Because the mind doesn't have the Shraddha decks. Yesterday we talked about the Shraddha decks. What is that? Yeah, the Windex of Shraddha, that wipes it clean of the debris of the Ghora and Mudha emotions. So when they are wiped clean, the Shanta Vritti, what does it say? That is the one which will, help this person to come out of this self-enforced, self-created tragedy. So both the things are talked about here when you say Maya. Asatta includes Asat and Mithya together. So Asat means, he says, like Narashringadav, like, the horns of a man. Man doesn't have horns, correct? Yeah. May behave like someone who has some, horns, like buffalo or something. That's a different thing. So the horns of the rabbit, horns of the human being is not having horns. So that is absolute non-existence, correct? That is called Jiva Srishti. Really speaking, it's a distorted version. Like the snake over the rope. When the rope is, when the snake, when the rope is finally seen for what it is, as the rope, then the very $1 million question is, where did the snake go, correct? Yeah. And what is the answer? It wasn't there to begin with, so where will it go? It never came. Only if it came, then you have to look under which bush it has gone. If it never arrived, Where was it projected? It was projected through the mind. So it was so is the snake on the rope absolute non-existence or not? Why it is taking so long? That is my question. It is non-existent. That's why you don't look for it. Correct? Yeah. But it's in my head. Everybody is thinking, but it's in my head. That is what Swami Vidyaranya is saying. Get it out of your head. That is the whole idea. Yeah, it is in your head, but is it real? Is it real? No. It cannot be real. It's an imaginary snake. So therefore it doesn't have a reality. So that which is imaginary, is it existent or non-existent? Okay, now we have to come down to, the basic level. That which you imagine in your head, okay, granted it's in your head, okay. So that which you imagine in your head, is it real or imaginary? Imaginary. So then does it exist or not?
As an imagination.
Namo Namah. So that which exists has two, according to Vedanta, it has two traits, two definitions of Sat. So we've been talking about Sat. So Sat means that which exists. Okay? That which exists is not subject to negation. Number one. Abadhitam Sat. Number two, second definition of Sat, Trikalepi Tishtati iti Sat. That which exists in all three periods of time, past, present, future. Is that true of your imagination? No. So now let us really come back to the question at hand, okay? Yeah. Is there really a snake? Does it exist? So can we say the snake is absolutely non-existent by these parameters?
Yes.
Okay, very hesitatingly to please me they are saying yes. I'm coming to the rope. Let us first deal with the snake. Because the snake is taking a long time to go here. Only after the snake goes, the rope is now becoming Then only we can discuss the rope, no? After the snake goes. So now can we usher the snake out? Yeah? Yes. Okay, can we deem it as absolutely non-existent?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. So now let us come to the rope, okay? The rope, is it existent or not? Now everybody has wisened up. So, does the rope exist? Yes. Why yes? Because it is available for transaction. We have to think like this, because it is available for objectification. Correct? Yeah. This is how to think like a Vedantin. So, you can impress some friends at parties, with these kinds of talk. You will become popular very quickly. So, does the rope exist or not? The working answer should be yes. Why? Because it is available for, this is how a Nayayika thinks, the logician thinks like this. Because it is available for objectification. Alright, if it is available for objectification, and then if it is available for objectification, people are having a good time online. So, so that means it is very good, Subbalakshmi. It is Vyavaharikam. Vyavaharikam means it's available for transaction. You can take one end and I can take one end and we can pull it. Like that game, Yeah. Except to make matters, to confound matters, they used a snake in the in the mountain churning. Okay, come back. So it is available for objectification. Yes or no? Yes. All the five senses can, nobody is going to taste a rope, but you could. You could, correct?
Yes.
You can smell it. It will have that, smell of that palm tree out of which it is made, a coconut rope, the coconut tree or whatever it is. You can hold it, you can see it, and if you rub the fibers, you can hear it, correct? So you can have all these interactions with a rope, whereas you cannot have the same interaction with a snake, correct? You cannot pet the snake, you cannot hold the snake, you cannot do anything with the snake, other than tell it to go, that's all, correct? So this is what is called, so the snake is called Pratibhasikam or Jiva Srishti. The rope is called Ishvara Srishti. Okay? Ishvara's creation and Jiva's creation. Jiva's creation is the rope. Jiva's creation is, it's the other way around. Yeah, Jiva's creation is the snake. Ishvara's creation is the rope. That is why the rope is here to stay, correct? Yeah. If the rope is not properly cognized, it turns into snake. Right? Yeah. So the proper cognition of the rope involves the withdrawal of my imagination, and the imagination is nothing but fear and desire. Two kinds of imagination. I want, I don't want. So the desire and the fear, pravritti, nivritti, filled imagination, approach, avoid, I like it, I don't like it, are the raw materials to create this snake. Correct? And as long as the snake is there and the rope is also there, which we had a few moments of that here, you cannot say two things exist. Correct? Why? Because one thing is mistaken for the other. So you cannot say rope also exists and snake also exists, as you were trying to insist a little earlier. So only one thing exists, it is mistaken for something else. Alright? So like same thing, if you see a person from the back, it looks like your friend that you have not seen in a long time, and you get very excited and go and pat him, slap him or her on the back, and then you say, hey, haven't seen you for a long time, where were you? And the person turns around and you get a shock because that person is not this person, correct? So are there two people? No. Yeah. There's only one person, the other one exists in the form of the desire or the sankalpa of missing this person in your head. That's why you see this person where the person is not, right? So you see the snake where the snake is not. So the snake is withdrawn through the management of the ghora and the mudha vrittis in the mind. Yeah. The withdrawal of the snake is nothing other, the quote unquote snake, me standing in for all my projections, is the withdrawal of the ghora and the mudha vrittis based on predominantly rajasic and tamasic qualities. And this we already saw, it is in our hands. It is in our hands to keep the mood light, and in the Shanta mode, it is in our hands. Correct? And so this, then now, provided we are able to do that, then we have two things to deal with. Correct? What are those two things? We have, we have the Jagat and we have Brahman. Now there are only two things, because the third thing, which is, Jagat within the Jagat, has been resolved. At least for the time being, it has been suspended. So now there are only two things, Jagat and Brahman. Now the discussion that is going to ensue is going to talk about how to do the same thing to the Jagat that you did to the snake. Exciting, right? Yeah. With a slight difference, with a slight twist. What is the twist? The snake is easy to falsify. Why? Because it does not have an objective reality. It is not capable of, transaction. The snake in the head doesn't bite, doesn't cause paralysis. Whereas the snake which is there in the Jagat can do all those things. And so, How do you falsify that which is the manifest universe? And the answer is, the same way that you falsified the snake. You know that the snake is in your head. First you have, you know it is there, but it is not real. And then what do? You let go of it by not giving it attention. Yes. So similarly, all these things in the universe, even though you are in the midst of them, starting with your own body, mind, sense complex, you withdraw your attention back to Sat Chit Ananda, even though you are surrounded by objects. And he's going to teach how. Like, for example, you look at a stone. Remember the stone and the clod of earth yesterday? Yeah. You look at the stone. And then you see what do you see? You see jadyam. Jadyam means inertness. Very good. You see jadyam, inertness. Because you can prod the stone with a stick, it's not going to protest. You can wish it good morning every day when you go for a walk, it's not going to, wish you back. It is inert. So when you look at the stone, what do you see? You see inertness, correct? You see jadyam. And then when the Vedantin looks at the stone, according to Swami Vidyaranya, you ask, go one more step and ask the question, what is behind the inertness? What upholds this inertness? What is the answer? Sat or Brahman. So the Asat also is upheld by what? Sat. So Achit is upheld by Chit. And now the most important one. Dukha is upheld by Ananda. This is the kind of meditation he wants everyone to do. And this is he's coming to the point, we are right in the heart of the chapter. This is the point of the chapter, he says. He says the point is not to go into a cave and get rid of thoughts. What will happen if you get rid of thoughts? Simple answer, they will come back, that's all. They will come back. There is one song, the cat came back the very next day. Yeah. And like that, even the dogs in the ashram. One time, there were too many dogs in the ashram in India, in Coimbatore. And there was the whole thing was so much population. And so they decided to take the female dog and put her in the next village. And she was right there from her childhood, she had been in the ashram. So the next village is called Tadagam, where everybody, where the vegetables are purchased and people go shopping and everything. And so they took the dog in their little shopping van, put it in the middle of the road in the marketplace, where they saw a lot of fishmongers and vegetable sellers, and it was a very friendly dog, so it mingled with everybody. So they said, okay, somebody will feed it, it will not starve. And then they went to Coimbatore, to the town, and they did all their shopping. And when they came back, at the ashram gate, the dog was the tail was wagging the dog. It was so happy. So like this, you send it out of the front door, it comes through the back door. Correct? Yeah. So therefore, one has to be, there is a certain kind of a vigilance that is described here. In mastering the meditation of seeing Brahman in and through everything. Because if you keep trying to get rid of the thoughts, it's like getting rid of the dog. It will come back before you. And then you can tell everybody proudly, I had moksha for 45 minutes when I meditated and I was in a thoughtless state. The thoughtless state is not moksha. It is even in the yoga system of philosophy. It is the beginning to gaining that understanding. Yogas chitta vritti nirodha. The stoppage of the thoughts is a way to have a say over the mind so that you can be the same whether there are thoughts or no thoughts. Thoughts cannot disturb Brahman. Thoughts are mithya. So, Brahman, mithya means maya. Thoughts are maya. Maya is a generic term. Mithya is used for, as a specific term. Maya, like I said, includes both Jiva Srishti and Ishvara Srishti. Mithya here only is used a specific term to connote Ishvara Srishti. Ishvara's creation. So therefore this mithya is the one over which I am having my own projections, correct? Yeah. And the thoughts are coming on their own. So even though I say I have a say over the thoughts, I am the one who is imagining the snake, correct? But then the raw material, which is fear and desire, is within the larger rubric of the Jiva Srishti, correct? This is our redemption, really. So it's all within the larger rubric of Ishvara Srishti. Everything is in, even the Jiva Srishti is within Ishvara Srishti. And so what? That is our redemption, that ultimately Jiva Srishti is included in Ishvara Srishti. So then, when I am able to observe these moods and see the Sat Chit Ananda in and through the various shades of the mind, I recognize the shadeless Brahman. Yeah. In and through the shady lady Maya, I recognize the shadeless Brahman. This is what is talked about. So you don't even start with the Jagat, you start with your own thoughts, the meditation. So let us look at this a little more. So these are the threefold nature of Maya is Asatta, Jadyam and Dukham. And when he says Asatta, what does he mean? He means Jiva Srishti, correct? Because he says Asatta Narashringadav, So when he says Asat, Maya is Asat, he means Jiva Srishti. It includes Jiva Srishti. And then Narashringa means the horns of the human being, etc. Then Jadyam, what does he mean by Jadyam? He is saying Jadyam Kashta Shiladishu. So in the slab of wood and in the slab of stone and the log of wood, this is called Jadyam, inertness. Okay? Yeah. And then what about the dukkha? Where is the dukkha found in the Jagat? Only in your head is the answer. There is no dukkha in the Jagat. It is amazing. Because you see, even though Maya was described as a threefold nature. What was the threefold? Asat, Jada, Achit or Jada and Dukkha, correct? Asat belongs to Jiva Srishti. There is nothing called Asat except in your own head that you imagine. And then Dukkha belongs to Jiva Srishti. So Maya is only, Ishvara Srishti in the form of Maya is only Jada, is only inert. Yeah. Okay, so I told you that Maya includes Jiva's creation and Ishvara's creation. Yes or no? Yes. So, and Maya was also side by side described as having a threefold nature. A nature which has three components. What were those components? Non-existence, asatta, inertness and sorrow. These are the three components of the nature of Maya, which is the opposite of the nature of Brahman, correct? Right. So now, I told you that Maya includes Jiva Srishti and Ishvara Srishti. Yes? So now, if we unpack these three components of Maya's nature further, let us see which one is Jiva Srishti and which one belongs to Ishvara Srishti. Then you see the first one, non-existence. And he gives an example of the non-existence. What does he mean by non-existence? Things that are imaginary, like the horns of a human being. Are they really existent or not in this rubric? No, they are not available for transaction. So where does the non-existent, where do the non-existent items like snake, which is cast on the rope, like the, like the rope snake, like the silver, which is projected on the shell, or like the horns of a human being, where are they located? In the jiva's head, correct? So then asatta is jiva srishti. The non-existence does not belong to Ishvara, because Ishvara is all existence. So the non-existent things that are created belong to the jiva's imagination, correct? Yeah. Now, inertness. The stone, he gives the example of a wood or a stone, and that is Ishvara's creation, both wood and stone. Wood means not on the tree, a log of wood or a slab of stone. That is not alive, insentient. This is what Ishvara Srishti, correct? Yeah. Then the last one, which is the component of Maya's nature, was what? The final one? Dukkha. Where is Dukkha? In one's own head. So that is also Jiva Srishti. So a point to note is that out of the 3 components of Maya, 2 of them are in your head. Very sad, correct? Yeah, very sad and very encouraging at the same time. It's a dubious blessing. Why is it a dubious blessing? It's very sad because it reiterates the fact that one is the cause of one's own sorrow, and one is and the cause of that sorrow is a runaway imagination full of fears and desires, which projects the non-existent upon the existent and distorts its view, which is the cause of sorrow. Correct? Yeah. So all that the Jagat is inert. That's all we have to take away from this. So Ishvara Srishti is only inert. It is neither of the nature of sorrow nor of the nature of non-existent or existence or imagination. Yeah. It is just a projection that is inert. So if it is a projection that is inert, then that means I am superimposing all kinds of things onto it. I am the one who is making the non-existent existent, and I am the one who is distorting that which is existent. And this is what he wants us to see. Let us look at the next verse. Ghoramudhadhiyor dukkham evam maya vijrimbhita shantadi buddhi vrityaikkya shantadi buddhi vrityaikyat Mishram Brahmeti Kirtitam. Yeah. So where is this dukkha? Where is the sorrow? So the sorrow is not in Ishvara's Srishti. Otherwise we go into the territory called Buddhism. One of the primary postulates of the Buddhist theology is that the world is the cause for sorrow. World is sorrowful. So sorrow becomes real. It's very interesting. And they keep saying it's our job to alleviate the sorrow of all sentient beings. If sorrow is real, you cannot remove it. Why? We just saw the meaning of the definition of the word real, that which cannot be negated. So if sorrow is real, it cannot be negated. Okay, it's unreal. If it's unreal, it need not be negated. What is there to negate? What are we doing here? No, it has this iffy quality. That is what it is. Because it has an iffy quality, it cannot be eliminated in a jiffy. That's why. If it was absolutely existent, it can be affirmed, and you cannot affirm sorrow. In fact, you want to get rid of it, you can't handle it for 1 minute. If it's absolutely non-existent, what is there to affirm? Correct? So therefore, it enjoys this middle quality. it creeps into the head, it's a Jiva Srishti really. It's a direct prasada. Prasada means the present. Present by the matriarch called Avidya Mataji. You know, the Mahamata, which is Avidya, gives a present, an heirloom. Yeah. And what is this heirloom? Sorrow. So, Ghora Mudha Dhiyoho Vrittayoho. In the Ghora and Mudha minds, in the minds that are complaining, of constantly being agitated, and in minds that are complaining of constantly being subject to sorrow, inertia, and a certain kind of inertness, fear, anger, all these things that we saw. Then, evam maya vijrimbhita. So, in those minds, Maya is dancing a big dance, right? Yeah. Maya is fully manifest. Yeah. Maya says, I am here to stay. Beta, bring a cup of tea. I'm not leaving. I'm not going to leave you. I love you too much. You know, there is a book, people who love too much. This is Maya, very dysfunctional love. This clingy, cloying love that makes you want to run away. There she is sitting there and just, hovering. This is in the Ghora and the Mudha vritti. Okay. Then what? Shantadi buddhi vritti aikyam. Aikyat mishram brahmeti tat kirtitam. So, because of its identification, Aikya means identification, its oneness. Because of its identification with the oneness, Brahman is called associated Brahman. Why? Associated with what? With Maya here, correct. And associated with the Shanta Vritti here, both. Okay? So, this is what it is. Because of its presence, so we also see two things. We have to backtrack a little bit. Two things we have to see and make very clear. The first thing is, in the Ghora and the Mudha vrittis, Rajas and Tamas is evident, correct? In the Shanta vritti, Sattva is evident. In the Shanta vritti alone, happiness is evident. Which is what? Satchit Ananda. Ananda is manifest only in the Shanta vritti. And when one is in the Shanta vritti, one is closest to Brahman, because one becomes the proper medium of reflection for Brahman to preside in the mind. So one has the proper mind for Brahman to come and sit. Correct? So this you remember. So if you remember this verse is very easy. All you have to see is that in the Shanta vritti, Brahman abides. This was told before. And then what kind of Brahman abides? Because it has taken the form of the vritti. It has taken the very form of the vritti that it projects, therefore it is called associated Brahman. Brahman which is as though associated with a Shanta mind. It's not really associated, okay? Yeah. It just is. So as though associated with a Shanta mind, it is called Mishra Brahma Prakirtitam or Iritam. Whatever it says, yeah. Iritam, Kirtitam. So it is known as Mishra Brahma. It is known as a kind of a mixed up Brahman. It's not really mixed up. There is no question of it being associated with anything, But then, why is the word Mishra Brahma used? Because we are talking to the Jiva. Who is this Jiva? Full of divisions, full of dualities. And the Jiva who feels I am sullied by Maya, this is the one who is being talked to. To make this Jiva understand, this is the way it is, talked about. That is what. It's just for ease of understanding. Now, evam sthite trayo brahma dhyatumichet pumanasau narashringādimupekṣeta शिष्टं ध्यायेत्यथा यतम् Yeah. So now the question comes, if in the Shanta Vritti Brahman is also there mixed up, correct? And in the Ghora Vritti and the Mudha Vritti what abides? Jiva Srishti in the form of Maya abides. And then how am I with these mixed up thoughts? Already I thought the behavior was mixed up, now the thoughts also are mixed up. And in the thoughts you say there is Brahman. A slight chink of Brahman coming through a small area where the mind is cleaned up of Raga Dveshas. So in this Brahman how to meditate upon, And it says very easily you can meditate. And he gives many ways to meditate. First, on the grossest level, he says don't look at the thoughts. Thoughts are subtle and they are extremely, changing, malleable. So by the time you focus on one thought, it's gone. So therefore, let us look at the world and then let us look at all the non-existent things, He's a very nice way of coming back to the mind without focusing on the thoughts. So the non-existent things, which are what? Like the horns of a person, etc. The horns of a person are dependent on what? Let's say they are real. Yeah. Where do they appear? No. The horns appear in the mind, but where are the horns? On the head of a man. Okay. Where do they appear? On the head of the person. Correct?
Yeah.
So the horns are non-existent or existent?
Non-existent.
Okay. Now the person?
Existent.
The person is existent. Correct? Yeah. Like the child, when you see at magazine, they will draw horns and mustache over the, over the cover person, That person is existent over which the non-existent horns are superimposed. This we have to see. And that existent person is nothing but Ayyo Devre. We'll wait. We have plenty of time. I'll wait till the answer comes. Yeah, what is Ishvara Srishti? What is that? Brahman. Why it's taking so long? The truth of the existent person is nothing but Brahman. So what he wants us to see in the meditation is that all the non-existent projections are actually based on something that is already existent. So withdraw the projection and see the object upon which the projection would have, could have, should have been as that which is nothing other than Brahman alone. Fantastic. Very beautiful. Because when you say snake, withdraw the snake from what? Correct? The fifth case comes, Kasmat. From what? From what I should withdraw this projected snake? The snake is projected onto the rope. The snake is projected onto the hose pipe, which is also lying in a convenient shape of the snake. Or the snake is projected onto a string, perhaps. Or no, forget string. The string is like a rope. What is it called? A river. A small creek, which is in the form of a snake. When you look in the plain, you see a snake which is, going between two cities. So the projection is false, correct? Non-existent. And that is just a product of Maya, my own Maya, personal Maya. But upon which that projection rests, that is Ishvara Srishti, right? That has Vyavaharika reality, transactable reality. So, the first order of business for the jiva in the grip of Ghora and Mudha vrittis is to come back to ground zero, some place where you can actually place your feet and know that this is real. Real again within the relative sense, correct? But that relative sense is important for the one who is out in orbit, orbiting in the, in the circular imagination of their own trajectory. So that person is brought down to ground and asked to inhabit Ishvara Srishti and contemplate upon this Ishvara Srishti as that which is nothing but Brahman. So you have come down one notch. Do you see that? Yeah. So the horns of the person are negated and the person is affirmed. The person upon which you drew those horns, that person is affirmed as being a flesh and blood person available for objectification, same as the rope. The snake is withdrawn, the rope is affirmed. We just did that. Correct? Yeah. So the rope is affirmed for the time being. Yeah. We have to go in stages. Because otherwise, because usually the problem with the people in Ghora and Mudha predominant vrittis is that they are in a kind of a self-spinning cycle. A cycle that keeps, propelling itself. And so they have to be brought back, or they have to be brought back to ground zero, which is the habitable world of names and forms. If the person who is, swimming in the Ghora and the Mudha vrittis, recycled, here this is one thing you should not recycle. Ghora and Mudha vritti, you should not recycle. Yeah. So if one is swimming in that and one is told everything is Maya, everything is Mithya, nothing exists, there it's already from a sense of dissociation. Already they are not participating in life. Already they are in their own world. So they have to be brought back to the world of Bhagavan before anything else can happen. So for them, that meditation is just to say, okay, the projection is non-existence. The object on which I had projected is nothing but Bhagavan, nothing but Brahman. Correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is what it says. So it's a two-part operation. So, so dhyatum icchet. So how to meditate on Brahman for the ones who are sunk in Ghora and Mudha vrittis. Evam sthitah sthite atra. If for the person, evam sthite means for the person, who is trapped in Ghora and Mudha vrittis, the nature of Maya being such that it has completely encircled the mind in the form of Ghora and Mudha vrittis, the person, puman, that person, Brahma dhyatum icchet, is interested in contemplating upon Brahman, then what to do? Narashringadi adim upeksheta. Upeksheta means deny. Keep it on the side. Don't go with the imagination. Yeah. And then for that he tells earlier in chapter 4, he says that this imagination, this going into fantasies is a very dangerous thing for a Vedantin. At first it's very harmless. You just sit down, nice breeze is blowing outside, you have something cool to drink, you're sitting in the sun, you're enjoying the sun, and then you start going, oh, what if this was a yacht? I'm in my private yacht and the waters are blue and I'm here and I'm wonderful. And then somebody is wanting a ride, I'm not going to bring them on the yacht. I want it all to myself. And then plus there are some nice samosas to eat and cool drinks and everything is so wonderful. You might argue what is wrong with this imagination, At first, Swami Vidyaranya says, this fantasy looks benign, so harmless. So what, let the person have that fantasy, let them sit in the yacht, let them have their, Fanta, samosa, whatever they want, let them have. It's not a big deal. But really speaking, it becomes more real than the mind that is projecting it. Yeah. Fantasy is propelled by desire, and when desire is given a lot of air, like fire, it spreads. And first you think you're making a small fire to just warm up the hands on a cold wintry day, and very soon it's become a forest fire. And then the next thing it wants to envelop and gulp is you. It wants to, gulp you down. And therefore, the imagination, this manorajya he calls it, is a very, very dangerous thing. In chapter 4 he discusses this. And incidentally, the title of the chapter 4 is the difference between Jiva Srishti and Ishvara Srishti. Do you see the pertinence of this discussion? Yeah. So this Manorajya has to be avoided, he says. And in the same spirit, in the 15th chapter, he reminds us of what he talked about in chapter 4. And he says that upeksha means, just like one would look at something, and again this he tells in chapter 14. Upeksha means what he talks about in chapter 14. Something wonderful, like a porridge, porridge. Milk porridge, you put milk, you call it kheer. So you put milk and rice and some nice brown sugar and coconut milk, and you cook the rice in that, and very aromatic. You put basmati rice, and then you put some cardamom and saffron, and it gets a nice light golden color, and it's just so delicious to eat. Unfortunately, the pet dog got to it before the family, correct? In this story, in chapter 14, pet dog got to it. And the pet dog saw the master coming and gulped it in a hurry, okay? Because it wanted to finish eating, but it knew that the master is coming with a rolled up something to, give it a little whack. And it wanted to avoid the beating, but it also wanted to, continue eating. Yeah. And so it ate in a hurry. And then what did it do? It vomited the whole thing up. Yeah. And so what will your attitude be to the freshly vomited porridge by the dog who ate it up so fast? This is not my example, okay? Yeah. I'm just repeating what's in chapter 14. Shuni vante payase. What will your attitude be? You won't even want to look at it, correct? And even though you may be feeling sad, such good milk, such good rice, so much hard work, so much nice ingredients all gone down the drain, you may be feeling sad, but you don't even want to think of the porridge, correct? You want to suddenly become very busy, so you don't have to clean up the porridge, the thrown up porridge, and then, you want to just make somebody else clean it up. You don't even want to go near it, correct? That is how you deal with the imagination, he says. That is called upeksha. So each time a nice imagination comes, and the imaginations are of two kinds. There is positive fantasy, again shobhana adhyasa in the mind, and then ashobhana adhyasa, a negative fantasy also. So both of them are negative according to Vidyaranya. It's not that you encourage one and discourage the other. Discourage both. Look upon both. Upeksheta, look upon them as an extreme throw up of the dog, of even a wonderful thing that you would have perhaps liked to eat before, but not anymore. And even Atma Bodha says the same thing, Yathaiva Kakavishtayam. Kakavishta means look at all the objects of desire in the mind, like the droppings of a crow. Yeah. So why do the Vedanta teachers do this extreme thing? This is the rehabilitation of people who are, sex offenders in prison and all has been taken from Vedanta alone, really. So they will show all these, desirable objects, and then show some horrible sewage or something like that side by side in the rehabilitation of these kinds of people who are given to criminal activity. And this they learned from Vedanta teachers only, how to do upeksha. Upeksha means total disregard. So here, when you are able to have a total disregard for the fantasies arising in the mind in the forms of horns and all kinds of things, snakes and all kinds of things, oh, I am sad and this is a fantasy. That you are sad is a fantasy. That you are angry is a fantasy. And so give those up and instead see that upon which that fantasy would have been projected. Correct? Yeah, give that up and then just see the thing for what it is. This is baby objectivity, baby vairagya, baby objectivity, baby step to objectivity. And then shishtam. Shishtam means what is left you focus on. Forget your projection and then focus on that which is left. Dhyayet yatha yatham means properly think of it exactly how it is, rather than, you shift the mind from the fantasy or the projection to that upon which the projection is being made. Affirm the object of projection and deny the projection itself. Understood? Yeah. Shiladau nama rupe dve tyaktva sanmatra chintanam tyaktva dukkham ghora mudhadhiyoh Satchid Dhiyo Satchid Vichintanam. Dhiyo has to go here. Tyaktva dukkham ghora mudha. Dhiyo Satchid Vichintanam. Okay, so the first kind of meditation, he's being very generous. This is a meditation because meditation has to address where the person is, not where you want him to be, or her. So the first kind of meditation is to withdraw the projection and look upon the object over which the projection was placed and affirm that as in a manifestation of Brahman. Okay? Understood the first one? Okay. The second one is a little more advanced compared to the first one. In the first one, it takes all the effort to withdraw the projection, correct? So there is not much meditation happening except withdrawing the projection constantly, all right? And getting to the witnessed state of just observing what is. In the second one, so you have progressed. And what is the progress made? You have progressed from Jiva Srishti to Ishvara Srishti. This is a big progress. So after attaining the objectivity, after being able to see the things in the world exactly as they are, not as how I see them to be, I perceive them to be, I want them to be, then the next step, he says, is to look at the Sat aspect in all the projected inert manifestations. Shiladau. Shiladau means in the stone, etc. etc. means he had also given wood, correct? Yeah. In the stone and the wood, etc. What to do? Dve tyaktva, nama rupe dve tyaktva. You remove or you disregard the name and the form. This is a word called stone with a meaning which we all understand to be stone. We understand that. And so this is a name and form. So you transcend as it were the name and form and sanmatra chintanam. Just contemplate or recognize. Contemplate here means recognize the Sat. And we do this all the time. This is not as hard to do as one thinks. When you say touch wood, what am I touching? Table. Yeah. Touch wood. Now what did I touch? Chair. And sometimes people say touch wood. I don't know what that means. So touch wood, I have transcended the chair, the name and form called chair. I have transcended the varnish, the veneer. I have transcended all the carvings here. And I have gone straight to the matter of which it is made, wood. Touch wood. And then similarly, what would I say here? Touch clay. So touch wood. So when I am able to do this touch wood everywhere else, that is a slightly superior form of meditation. Because the wood is the Sat of the chair, correct? The Sat of the chair, the truth of the chair, the source of the chair, is wood. For the chair, the Brahman is wood in relation to the chair. So when I say touch wood, I am not looking at the name, the form, and I am just looking at the wood, what it is made up of. So when I say touch wood, I don't have to go to a lumber yard or hug a tree or, hug some 2x4s. I don't have to do that. Why? Because right here, I can say touch wood. Never say touch wood, because that means I have jada buddhi, I'm saying. Yeah. So touch wood is transcending everything and looking at wood. So here too, in the stone, look at Sat in the same way. More we will see next week. Tomorrow? Yes. Today is only Thursday. Yes, tomorrow, yeah. More we will see tomorrow. Tonight, Bhagavad Gita. Yes? Yes. Tonight, Bhagavad Gita at 6 o'clock. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Questions? Yes?
Is sentience then not part of Maya?
Yes, sentience is not part of Maya. In the strictest sense of the word, yes. Good, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Is sentience consciousness? Yes, absolutely. And Maya is insentient because it lives on borrowed sentience from Brahman, that's what we say. Oh, Shinshin, you were there too? Oh, wonderful. You say that imagination and fantasy is dangerous, but then there is another school of thought that by doing this one is programming the subconscious mind which can help to achieve goals. Many business leaders use this, and so do sportsmen. Can you please discuss this? Well, what would Swami Vidyaranya say to this? He would say that, that is different than imagination. Imagination means focusing on the non-existence and the as existent. That is what we are. See, imagination doesn't mean anything that we want to think, we cannot think. We have to see how Vidyaranya is looking at imagination and what is he decrying. So, according to Vidyaranya, Swami Vidyaranya says Manorajya. Manorajya means a certain way in which the mind is given a loose, free, wheel to drive wherever it wants. And if you do that, it can only drive you crazy. That is what it will do, So you have to keep it busy, you have to withdraw the mind, and you have to have the reins over the mind. Okay? Now, see, therefore, what is so the imagination, when it is, when is it dangerous? It is dangerous because it runs along with whatever you. But then, when you talk of the imagination in the business training and the cognitive changes in sports people, etc., that's a different thing. That is not imagination. That is called sankalpa. That's different. Even Bhagavan did sankalpa before the universe was manifest. That is what is meant by satapo tapyata. So, satapo tapyata means that Bhagavan also did sankalpa. And so the sankalpa means it's a planning. Planning. You plan for this. This is what I would like to have a goal. That's not imagination. That's planning. Today I am going to cook this and this. Simple thing. Forget 5 year, Today I have this in the fridge. So I have some potatoes and carrots in the fridge, and I am going to make these together using some cumin and other spices. Suppose if I say that, it's not imagination. It is a planning. So, and when you plan properly, it is in fact important to plan before you execute. Correct? Yeah. Imagination would be, instead of the carrot and potatoes, I am imagining a 5-course feast fit for a king, which has nothing to do with carrots or potatoes. Do you see that? Yeah. So planning with the existent things, taking the existent things into account is called sankalpa. Imagination is, projecting the non-existent onto existent things. Okay? What? Manorajya. Manorajya. Yeah. Then Swaminichi, I started with the Panchadashi, but would like to know other material that needs to be read and the order of the materials to be read to proceed further. If you take my advice, Anand, I think you should not read. Panchadashi is the worst text to read. It is extremely confusing, to say the least. And Vedanta, the way to understand Vedanta, I see that you are interested in this knowledge and it's wonderful. The way to understand Vedanta is not through reading. It is through Shravanam, through listening. That is why it works. So, no matter how well it's translated, it is very difficult to gain this through reading. However, having said that, Swami Dayananda ji has a Gita home study. You can get that. You can form a group where you are, and whoever like-minded people, you can read a few pages together every week, and that would be a very good way to proceed. Yeah, that is the best way. Yeah. Can we also say that imagination talked out is at the Vyavaharic level? Talked out above? No, we don't need to say that. Let's not call it imagination. That is sankalpa. That's an intention. An intention to achieve something is different from imagination. Okay? Yeah. Sankalpa is at the Vyavaharic level, yes. If it is not at the Vyavaharic level, it is called building castles in the air. It becomes Manorajya. Yeah. So if you, let's say, if somebody has $500 and plans how to spend it. Okay, I'm going to use 100 for this and 200 for that and 100 I'm going to keep for rainy day. Like that, if that plans, that is called Sankalpa. If you imagine 3 more zeros behind the 500 and you start to spending it before it has come, that is Manorajya, dangerous, okay? Yeah. Oh, so Gita at 6 o'clock. Yeah, one more question, yes? I wish there were 3 more zeros, she says. Yes.
How can one tell the difference between intuition and imagination?
Intuition, yeah, you can't. That's why we don't rely on intuition a lot. Yeah. Intuition is not a means of knowledge. Yeah, you don't even need to go to YouTube. Go to you type my name and do, what is it called, live stream. Google live stream. Live stream link is there, or go to the website arshavm.org, and then there is the live stream link. And Google, on YouTube also things are there, but they are posted late. And in live stream, they are posted immediately after teaching. So please look for the live stream link. It is there on the first page itself. And then you can go to the ashram website and then do that. Okay? Yeah. I'm glad you have been to Anaikatti and listened to Swamiji's lectures. Yes, being in the remote place is difficult. Yes. Namaste, Laurie. Laurie is also here. Yeah.